one way to escape.
Who tracks internet users? Is it possible to remain anonymous online? Or is disconnecting for good the only method of ensuring your privacy? Hassan Elahi, a US artist born in Bangladesh, couldn't have imagined that his life would be forever changed by the 9/11 terrorist attacks. In 2002, he was detained at Detroit Airport and told that he was suspected of helping terrorists.
It all started with an FBI investigation where I was erroneously reported as a terrorist suspect. There was a report that an Arab man had fled on September 12th who was hoarding explosives. Now, never mind I'm not Arab, never mind there was no explosives there, but in the fear they decided, well, that guy looks a little different, so he must be Arab, and if he's Arab then he must have explosives.
Later it transpired that Hassan had been put on a list of suspects by mistake. Nevertheless, the FBI continued to track the artist. He feared that sooner or later he might end up in prison, at Guantanamo Bay. That was when Hassan decided to make life easier for the special services. He set up a site called Tracking Transients, where he posts every single bit of personal information about himself in real time.
So what you're seeing here, you can see that there's a red arrow with some boxes, and you can see a city and an image. Well, okay, so where is the city? Well, it looks like there's a river nearby and there's lots of green. Let's go in a little bit further, and we're in this building right here, next to a church.
As the days and months went by, the constant information feed of this one person's life became an artistic project.
When I first started this project, people thought I was out of my mind. Why would you want to tell everyone every little detail of everything that you're doing? Why do you want to do that? Well, not even 7-8 years later, we have 750 million people on Facebook that essentially doing the same thing.
Yevgeny Kaspersky is one of Russia's most successful businessmen. His computer security company, Kaspersky Labs, was founded in 1997. It's now the country's leading producer of antivirus software. The company has offices around the world. For years, Kaspersky has campaigned for the introduction of unified laws for the internet. He feels safeguarding personal information should be the prime objective.
Let's suppose you've created a program and want to launch it on the internet, or you log on to a banking page or want to do something else that may potentially harm other users. In that case, you're welcome to present your internet passport. That passport might come in a variety of forms.
But Russia's leading specialist in online security seems powerless in the face of offline criminals. On an April morning in 2011, Kaspersky's son Ivan was on his way to work, as usual passing an old industrial area. Two criminals were lying in wait. They overpowered Ivan, bundled him into a car and took him to a location near Moscow. In the evening, Yevgeny Kaspersky received a phone call. The kidnappers demanded a ransom of several $1 million. As it turned out, the abductors had gleaned Ivan's personal information from his page on Russia's most popular social network. It included his phone number, home address, and daily route to work.
Social networks shouldn't encourage users to post that sort of information. If a site asks for private information, then criminal charges should be brought against it in the event of a leak.
Yevgeny Kaspersky agreed to talk to us on the condition that he would not be asked to comment on his son's abduction. Even so, it prompted Russia's leading computer security campaigner to come up with codes of conduct for firms dealing in people's private data.
Social networks are a public space like cafes and restaurants. That's where people get together. Normally, the organizations that run such places work for profit. Social networks are commercial structures. The responsibility for the security of their guests should be on their heads and wallets.
While Ivan Kaspersky was being held in the basement of a house in the Moscow region, his father and police were trying to figure out his abductor's whereabouts. An intercepted phone call helped police detain the kidnappers during the handover of the ransom. The incident sparked fears that such websites were becoming a goldmine for criminals. But internet security specialists maintain that the Kaspersky case is the exception rather than the rule.
In this case, the fact that social networks are used by a huge mass of people plays a positive role. If there were only 100 users disclosing information about themselves, there is no doubt that they would be the primary target. But today, the threat is spread over millions of users. This means that what was dangerous several years ago is far less risky today.
The name of the game here, guys, is not that there's people out there that are Big Brother that want to invade your privacy. They want to sell you stuff. This is all about money. It's not nefarious. It's not sinister. This is all an attempted engine of capitalism. That's it. They want to sell you stuff. They want to know everything about you so they can sell you stuff.
Stephen Rambam is a private investigator who runs an online investigation service. He's toured the United States holding discussions on his report that gets straight to the point. Privacy is dead. Get over it. At every stop along his tour, he repeated his message over and over again. The true meaning of the word privacy was lost a long time ago.
But I'll tell you the biggest privacy invader of all. It's your cell phone. This has changed everything. It tells me where you are. It tells me who your friends are. It tells me who's important to you. It tells me where you work. It tells me where you live. It tells me where you eat. It tells me everything that I need to know about you.
Yandex is Russia's leading internet search engine. The company's motto of "Here you can find anything you want" became even more significant in the summer of 2011. At that time, thousands of private SMS messages sent via the website of a Russian cell phone operator ended up being displayed in the Yandex search engine. Anyone could read the private correspondence.
As a matter of fact, there was a mistake made by that site's developers. In any case, those messages were in the public domain. What did Yandex do? It simply found those pages. That's all there is to it.
It's now known that search engines are a very simple method of finding a lot of personal information. Security specialists remind people that online communication is never a private conversation, even if you think you are talking to only one person.
Any internet information that is available at all can and will be indexed, that's for sure. Search engines are being improved all the time, progress never goes back, it always moves forward, technologies don't become worse. Search engines are always being improved.
One of Russia's most popular blog services, LiveJournal, is housed in these offices. The company's major problem is the growing number of users who are turning to popular social networks.
So, how are we coming along with security?
But LiveJournal staff think the tide will turn. They say that in 5 years' time, those users will be terrified by the thought that they have revealed too much about themselves to the world.
Most users are not aware of the fact that they are at risk. They now know that social networks are fraught with security threats, following media reports about users being robbed after revealing their personal information online. That's when the anonymity era will set in. Everybody will begin purging their profiles and leaving social networks.
It's true that LiveJournal is a social network, but with a difference. Most of its users are keen to hide personal information under nicknames without revealing their true identities. Put simply, they've created online personas for their online lives.
Content is the all-important principle of LiveJournal. We are concerned with what people write about, but who the writers are is not so important. If Facebook is a social network, it is important to know who you and your friends are. With us, it is not that important. LiveJournal users do identify their journals somehow, but they are anonymous in the sense that a journal is not a person.
Hello, will you please sign the book for Dina?
Until recently, the well-known Russian fiction writer Sergei Lukyanenko had a LiveJournal page. Like most authors, he hid his identity under a nickname. His page was one of the 3 most popular Russian blogs. But when comments on one of his entries erupted in scandal, and he started getting death threats, he decided to close his account.
Real life should include an area of privacy, because internet is a priori outside of privacy. People need to understand that.
But artist Hassan Elahi has no intention of closing his Orwellian project. Instead, he wants to share more information with the world.
I figured in my way, with as much as information as I share, I live an incredibly anonymous and private life. And I wouldn't be able to do that if there wasn't all this information about me in the public. Because that's really just noise at the end of the day.
Hassan expects most people to follow his example very soon and usher in an era of total information transparency. The American artist insists that it will be a world without secrets.
Is that so much of
I'm not saying it would be a good idea.
And a lot of people are curious.
You have to look at the era of great discontent. All across the globe, people are protesting against the political, economic, and financial status quo. Is this because of globalism?
A very warm welcome to you. This is your news today. And protesters on Wall Street, they...
Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned in to the Juice News set again, where we're examining the status of the human experiment. Is it succeeding or will it have to be aborted? We pursue a prognosis in this rap news audit. As you know, the globe is urgently trying to make sense of our global economy and its arcane trends as financial temples teeter. The priesthood is scrambling to maintain our confidence in markets and banking after derivatives, quantitative easing, trade imbalances, recession, low GDP, nations close to collapsing, and subprime loans, foreclosed homes, and people's taxes spent to bailouts and big to fail AAA banks again. Fear levels rising as a US crash seems imminent, having smashed the debt ceiling of 14 trillion. Despite protests and clashes in Athens streets, the IMF imposed structurally unjust programs in Greece, where in fact the term economy...
Okay.
From the days of the Manhattan Project in 1942, the University of California has been involved through its provision of scientists and their relationship to the university.
UC since day one has been in charge of researching, designing, and testing nuclear weapons, and to some extent producing weapons.
Every single nuclear weapon in today's arsenal was designed by a University of California employee.
We don't want bombs.
The University of California was selected as the contractor because the Army needed scientists to leave their university positions.
A group of protesters interrupted a University of California Board of Regents meeting to demand the school sever ties with the nation's nuclear weapons program.
August 2011 was a turbulent month in London. The fatal police shooting of a young man from an ethnically tense suburb sparked disturbances on a scale the British capital had not seen in decades. Small shops and ordinary Londoners suffered most of all in the standoff. Burglaries skyrocketed over a week of disturbances.
So I walk in my apartment, first thing I notice is that the door was open. So I look around, my flat was completely rampaged. It was like a tornado went through. All these drawers were open, clothes and things were spread all over the place. That's when I noticed that the window was open and that the bars had been wedged open. So if you see here, all the damage to the window.
Thieves ransacking the flat of programmer Craig Martin took away what he treasured most, a laptop storing his personal information and numerous projects.
Personal, my work laptop, had all kinds of software and files on it, and although it was encrypted, I felt safe about that. I just didn't want it falling in the wrong hands. At the point the police came and did their forensic work, they were dusting for prints. I couldn't help but think that I was in the Stone Age. I was like, okay, they're never going to find this stuff. It's gone.
Craig had little faith in the police's ability to catch the culprits anytime soon. So he decided to launch his own investigation. Social networks and a special program he'd installed on his computer proved helpful.
And essentially how it works is you go to the website and then flag that your laptop is been stolen, and the laptop, next time it's online, will start sending reports containing location, pictures of the person if you have a built-in webcam, as well as screenshots of what's going on the screen at that particular time.
It took Craig just a few hours to find out all that he needed to know about the man who'd stolen his computer. He knew his exact location. Facebook provided him with the thief's account, and the laptop's web camera took pictures of him.
A Google search later, I knew where he went to high school, who his family was, all kinds of information about the person. Essentially built this dossier of information and turned it over to the London Metro Police. They were able to pick him up within 24 hours after that.
Through his job, Craig has been tracing changes in how private lives are detailed on the internet for quite some time. He maintains it's impossible for anyone who's been online to hide anymore.
Essentially, you have to know that now when you're online, you have no privacy, and there's not a lot of ways to protect your identity, especially people that use Facebook and have information on blogs or Twitter. All you have to know is a personal piece of information to find the whole enchilada. So.
German Sterligov is arguably the most eccentric figure in Russian business. He was Russia's first dollar millionaire and founded the first commodity exchange. Now Sterligov lives in a village. He calls on his countrymen to reject the accomplishments of progress.
So this is our freezer. We didn't have one until earlier this year. And it's a dream come true, because now we have a no-nonsense freezer. We can pack it with big lumps of meat and ice when the cold comes around, and the ice down there lasts all year long.
Sterligov moved his family into a big timber house that has no freezer, no cooker, and no internet access.
This thing is our spy, but it's become our master, and soon our banker too. Then there'll be complete dependence on it. And if you want to escape, there's only one way out.
Nevertheless, Sterligov has to remain in tune with the times. A couple of years ago, he launched a new business project. He needs to make daily trips to Moscow, where he spends 10 hours in his skyscraper office. Sterligov feels it's too late for him to worry about his information privacy. Too much information is already on the internet. But he doesn't allow his children to even approach a computer, let alone go online.
Here, whatever poses a threat to children's health isn't banned. It's actually the other way round. Asphalt is far less dangerous than the TV set, and even chemicals are not as dangerous as the internet.
Two programmers tampering with a new iPhone in the spring of 2011 stumbled upon a file they'd never come across before. As it turned out, the phone was storing information about its owner's movements for the past month.
Now, Apple explained this was fairly sort of innocent, and that may well have been the case, but you can certainly see it happening in the future where this is less innocent and people start using this information, for example, in court cases. You know, if you're accused of doing something, people might say, I demand to see this file on your phone, which will prove you were where I said you were.
Later, the owners of other smartphone brands also complained about snooping telephones. Many spoke in earnest about the arrival of the Big Brother era.
If people don't want that data to be sent to these companies, the best thing to do is not necessarily use those types of services that are hooked to the internet, or, you know, just to put that data right out there on the internet, or something that's linked to the internet like a smartphone.
Programmer Sami Kamka is a security expert. He's one of the most prominent whistleblowers of major corporations such as Apple and Google. He's sure that the recording of all iPhone users' movements is just a trial step. Subsequent developments will be more sophisticated. Marketing specialists are not the only ones who reap the benefits of information transparency. Social networks have also made life much easier for recruitment agencies. It wasn't that long ago that human resources staff would rely exclusively on what the candidate told them about themselves and recommendations from previous employers. Now they have more detailed information.
We can find out where candidates have been employed before, where they spoke in interviews, what communities they belong to, or what conferences they have attended. That's what we need to know above all. If we see accessible online information about somebody being a member of some odd community, we will have doubts about his or her adequate behavior.
Before making a final decision, a recruitment agency today checks all information that's available on the internet.
This way, please. We'll start with a brief interview. There was an incident at one major company. The person in question was the former head of HR and was not particularly well liked. One day, security decided to investigate him, and they looked through his browsing history. They came across the questionnaire results that he had filled out on a dating site. It turned out that he had made no attempt to hide the fact that he was a pedophile. Needless to say, the man was thrown out of the company in disgrace.
Activists from the Russian Pirate Party believe it is possible to be anonymous online. In the spring of 2011, they created a site called RuLeaks, which looked similar to the notorious WikiLeaks project. The system developed by the Russian pirates makes it possible for anyone sending information to remain absolutely anonymous.
Whatever you do on the internet will be used against you. Every bit of information you spread through social networks and blogs and the history of your search queries, all that is stored. That information shapes your true profile so much so that it's possible to model your psychological portrait. Even so, there are systems out there that can make you anonymous and secure.
Private detective agency boss Stephen Rambam always concludes his public addresses with the same message: be humble. The era of global openness and universal information transparency began a long time ago. His advice to those who want to have at least a measure of protection is simple: make your visits to the internet less frequent.
And I post just often enough to let people know that I'm alive, possibly once a month. And I'm very careful that I keep location-aware programs turned off, so it doesn't report where I physically am at that moment, and I don't report what I'm doing or who I'm with or things like that.
But the artist Hassan Elahi advocates a different strategy. He urges people not to hide anything and share information about their every move with the entire world.
The reason that information has value is that no one else has access to it. But by cutting out this middleman and giving it directly to the public, the information that this agency has no value whatsoever. So therefore it devalues the currency, and the currency being of intelligence. But if hundreds of millions of people started doing this, we would have to rethink the entire system from the ground up. And we would have to, in that fact. And as a matter of fact, that day it's not that far from that day.
Social networking sites continue to be relatively quiet on the issue of their users' security. But with so much information readily available, criminals will continue to exploit it. Cases like Craig Martin's and Ivan Kaspersky's won't be the last. It seems the only true solution to maintaining your privacy is to completely go offline.